tell me right now, I mean, I can just see the emotion on your face.
Yes, yes.
It must be a great feeling.
Yes. My wife and I were sitting on the bank of the Clemecki River looking at the forest and we're just praying. And we're saying, Lord, supernaturally guide her in our direction somehow. Today we're going to get out there with a bunch of guys, and we're just about to do that before we got the call. We're just going to do a sweep of the forest, Right before we got into the boats, we got the call that she just happened to wander this way, and it's not a coincidence. God's hand was upon her, it was upon her. I have no doubt about that. And this is, I'm sorry about my dad. I'm so sorry that my dad passed away. But this is amazing. This is truly amazing. And thank you, Lord, for this.
The last day and a half must have just been such...
It's been up and down and up and down, and I feel like I'm hyperventilating as I speak, It's like one of those things. And I never thought I'd be going through this in my life, but, after this, I'm ready to go skydiving. I don't care what it is. I'll do whatever it takes.
Clemecki County, a remarkable story about this 5-year-old girl who was missing, who then walked out of the woods at about 10:30 this morning.
Her grandfather's body was pulled from the water just about an hour earlier, but the girl was found near the Clemecki River in Moments, where the two had disappeared while boating. ABC 7's Michelle Gallardo is live in Moments with more. Michelle?
Good afternoon. They're calling Hannah Clemecki the miracle girl here in Moments this afternoon. It really was something to be there in the minutes after she was found. There were grown men, the rescue workers, with tears of disbelief in their eyes. Everybody that was gathered there this morning pretty much thought that they were there to recover a body. And in the end, when she just walked up to them, well, it was something pretty special. There's no way to describe the raw emotion of this unlikely moment. A mother and daughter reunited after a frantic 2-day search for the girl and her grandfather, gone missing during a boat trip on the Clemecki River Wednesday night near Moments.
I'm sorry about my dad. I'm so sorry that my dad passed away. But this is amazing. This is truly amazing, and thank you, Lord.
An exhaustive search of the river produced 62-year-old David Clemecki's body early this morning. His family had just gotten the grim news, and then little more than an hour later, despair turned to joy. 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki just walked out of the woods and up to the very spot that rescue workers were using as a starting point for their search.
It's a miracle, just a miracle. She was healthy, like she was hungry. She'd had a lot of scratches on her from walking through the branches and weeds and sticker bushes and stuff. Bob Bowen, he just said that she had a handful of berries in her hand, like we're talking a girl that's 5 years old. She's a survivor.
At a press conference this afternoon, investigators said that after speaking briefly to Hannah, they now believe there was some sort of swimming accident. And in fact, the family has confirmed that they used to frequent this very part of the river.
Her story was that Grandpa said, let's go for a swim, it's hot. And that he got out of the boat, went directly into the water, and then she had to wade into the water. And at that point, when he was on one side of the boat and she was on the other side of the boat, came around the boat, she didn't see Grandpa, and the current had her. And she was able to reach up somehow and grab a branch and hold on and then fight her way out of that current.
My dad and Hannah, they were best friends. They went on the boat together. They were river rats together. They were best friends until the very end.
Now, Hannah was taken to the hospital just to make sure that everything is okay, although she doesn't appear to be in good condition. Rescue workers were telling us that when she was found, she was completely naked and very dirty. When they asked her about it, she just said that her bathing suit had gotten very muddy, and so she took it off. Live in Moments, Michelle Gallardo, ABC 7 News. Sylvia, back to you.
Quite a story, Michelle. Thank you.
Good afternoon from Studio 5. I'm Bob Surratt.
And I'm Marion Brooks. Our top story is a bittersweet one, but with a very happy ending. The body of a missing grandfather who disappeared while boating with his young granddaughter has been recovered, but the 5-year-old girl was found alive. NBC5's Rob Elgas is live for us in Moments, where the little girl and her family just had a very emotional reunion. Rob?
Marion, this is a roller coaster ride of a day for the Clemecki family. As you mentioned, the body of 62-year-old David Clemecki was found this morning, and not soon after, as you mentioned, Hannah, the 5-year-old girl, walked out of the woods and walked up to searchers, and it was an unbelievable roller coaster of emotions for them as well. We just had a chance to go into the emergency room and spend some time with Hannah. We'll show you those pictures as she sat with her parents. She has some visible scratches on her face, but she is in good spirits. In fact, when she approached searchers, she asked for some water and a banana. She also had some berries in her hand. She's since had a grilled cheese sandwich and some French fries and is resting comfortably in the ER. Here is what the fire chief of Moments had to say about how they found her earlier this morning.
When they found her this morning, she was naked. I think I did, when I did visit with the parents in the ambulance, you know, and was giving them hugs or whatever, and her mother did ask her what happened to her suit, and she said, "Mom, it got all muddy, I took it off." So, you know, at 5 years old, you know, a lot of kids don't have any, they don't care.
It's like a miracle is what I asked. Do you believe in miracles? I do now. To see that little girl walk across and to answer some of the questions that were that her first time was she was scared. Her face was a lot of dirt on it. And they asked her for some water. She took the water, she had a banana, and I brought her a cookie, which she wanted, the chocolate cookie.
The initial reaction was kind of hysterical, just overjoyed, being so almost hopeless.
That was Hannah's father just about 10 minutes ago. She had been missing in the woods for 2 days since Wednesday night, and we're starting to learn from investigators what may have happened. They believe her and her grandfather went for a swim in a dangerous stretch of the Clemecki River. He was swept away. Incredibly, she managed to grab a branch, go from an island in the middle of the river to the north shore of the river, where she wandered around for 2 nights until she came out this morning. Once again, Hannah Clemecki, a hero this morning for staying alive on her own. She is here. We are in Clemecki at Riverside Healthcare Center. She is likely to remain here, but is in good spirits, as you saw in that video just a little bit ago. Certainly happy to be with her parents. What a day for the Clemeckis. For now, live in Clemecki, Rob Elgis, NBC5 News.
What an amazing story. Wow. Thanks, Rob.
First, a touching ending to the story of another little girl, a 5-year-old found alive today after she and her grandfather came up missing days ago. The 5 o'clock news starts right now.
Right now. Chicago's NBC5. This is NBC5 News at 5.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Rosati.
And I'm Warner Saunders. 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki disappeared 2 days ago while boating with her grandfather in the Clemecki River. This morning, searchers discovered the body of 62-year-old David Clemecki and feared the worst for little Hannah. That fear turned to utter amazement when the little girl seemed to appear from nowhere, walking out of the woods, scratched up, but otherwise okay.
Initial reaction was kind of hysterical, just overjoyed, being so almost hopeless, you know, almost, I mean, it just looks so bad, and then out of the woods, here she comes.
The child told searchers she and her grandfather went for a swim when both were overcome by a strong current. She was able to grab a tree branch and hang on, pulling herself out of the water.
This day of both joy and loss is being felt not only in Moments, where the grandfather lived, not far from the Clemecki River, but in the suburb of Villa Park. Whereas NBC5's Phil Rogers reports tonight, neighbors of the Clemecki family are ecstatic young Hannah will soon be coming home safe and sound.
In a Villa Park neighborhood deeply rooted in faith and family, a miracle.
Last night there were maybe about 100 of us over at the church around the corner praying for her and asking God to just bring her home safely and bring her grandfather home safely, and you know, she just came back.
It's very scary, and I was praying and hoping she would come back, and in my head I knew she would.
At times it must have seemed that only the worst news might come. But as we say, this is a neighborhood of optimism and faith. Indeed, not only does Hannah live next door to the church, her father is the pastor.
Just God really had his hand on Hannah and brought her out of those woods.
Here at the Clemecki home, again, faith and family. Hannah's toys sharing space on the porch with the family Bible. Her friends rejoicing at the news.
I want to. My mom said I could give her one of my angel toys.
And it's funny how she comes walking out of the woods and goes, "Hi, guys."
Amid the happiness, grief tonight that the murky waters of the Clemecki River claimed Hannah's grandfather. Neighbors here said they would do what they can to comfort the family in their hour of grief, even as they rejoice in a little girl's safe return.
The girl was found alive. She spent almost 2 days alone on the banks of the Clemecki River. Well, she shocked rescuers this morning who believed they were searching for her body. Good evening, I'm Diane Burns.
And I'm Antonio Mora. The girl survived a boating trip that sadly claimed her grandfather's life. CBS 2's Suzanne Lemignot is in Clemecki at the Riverside Medical Center where she just spoke to the little girl's family. Suzanne.
Antonio, Hannah was given intravenous fluids. Doctors who were concerned about her hydration. She was also treated for the tremendous scrapes that just covered her body because she was walking through brush for 2 days.
You're just really sleepy now, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's understandable why 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki is so exhausted. The young girl endured more than 40 hours alone in the woods along the Clemecki River. Hannah and her grandfather, Dave Clemecki, disappeared while boating here Wednesday evening. Hannah's dad, who was a pastor, says he leaned on his faith the entire time.
We just prayed that night and all night that God would supernaturally bring her out of those woods into a place where she could be found against all odds, and God delivered her into exactly where she needed to be, where everybody was.
Moments Fire Chief Dave Horn was among the first to see Hannah when she walked up to a staging area where search teams had gathered.
One of the gentlemen said that she had some berries in her hand, like she had been surviving on her own. A 5-year-old girl now, you know, it's unbelievable.
Sadly, Hannah's grandfather didn't survive. The Kankakee County Sheriff says Clemecki may have been caught in a logjam while swimming with Hannah in the Kankakee River. His body was found this morning.
He's one of the reasons that Hannah's with us. I know that there's no doubt in my mind that he made it possible for her to get to that riverside, or he made it possible for her to get pushed out onto that branch. We don't know what happened, but I know in my heart that he loved her and he gave his life for her, I know.
An autopsy is going to be performed on Dave Clemecki tomorrow morning. Meantime, when Hannah went to the searchers, when she was found there, she was naked. Now, her mother said, "Where was your bathing suit?" She said, "Well, Mommy, it got muddy and I took it off and I wanted to make sure that Grandma could wash it for me." Her mother said Hannah always knew that she would be found. Live in Kankakee, Suzanne Lemignot, CBS 2 News.
Oh, so sweet. Thanks, Suzanne. The CBS 2 investigators learned that cell phones were found.
More about not finding Hannah, but then when we found her, it was like a miracle, and it was like almost hysterical joy.
I can imagine. And now you've set up, we're sitting at this picnic table that you've actually set up for some of the rescue workers. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, if they would come. We invited you guys to come, so please do.
So tell us, why you decided to put this together.
Because we realized that the rescue workers worked many hours. I mean, we're talking 24 on hours, and they were, just drained and exhausted. That's why they may not show up. They might be tired, but we hope that they do. And the chief Dave Horn did a fantastic job. Jeff of the Aquatics unit found Hannah, and Hannah sat with him for about a half an hour eating a banana, and we have so much respect for those guys.
Well, thank you so much again for being with us today, Carol and Mike Clemecki. Congratulations on finding your daughter, and of course our condolences on your loss as well. And so, a bittersweet ending to this story, but at least we know that Hannah is okay and she's back at home tonight. Live in Moments, Michelle Gallardo, ABC 7 News. Alan and Sylvia, back to you.
All right, Michelle, thanks so much. Wait on.
This is Chicago's very own WGN News at 9.
She had a banana, and I brought her a cookie, which she wanted the chocolate cookie.
An unbelievable story of survival. After missing for 2 days, a little girl, feared drowned in the Kankakee River, is safe with her family tonight. Good evening. I'm Steve Sanders.
And I'm Allison Payne. WGN's Julie Unruh live in Villa Park with our top story tonight. Julie.
Allison, divers, sonar equipment, a helicopter overhead, and dozens of rescue crews combing the Kankakee River for days in search of a 5-year-old girl. Well, friends and relatives that you'll see here behind me will certainly tell you that none of it was necessary because Hannah Clemecki's future was in the hands of God. Tonight, they all gathered here at her church in Villa Park to thank God for her safe return. Miles from the action in Kankakee County, some residents in Villa Park are rejoicing at the news that Hannah Clemecki is alive. For days, they've been hoping and praying that the 5-year-old daughter of their church pastor would be found after she headed out on a fishing trip with her grandfather Wednesday night. The two were fishing in this boat together, and the story goes that they were also swimming in the Kankakee River, but 62-year-old David Clemecki never returned. Neither did his granddaughter until today.
I finally got on the air and I just screamed, I said, boys, she's alive.
Day and night for nearly 2 days, rescue crews had scoured the water and the land looking for a sign of life. This morning, they found David's body in the water. 2 hours later, young Hannah emerged from the woods, scratched and bruised and hungry, but she was all right.
She was scared. See, her face was a lot of dirt on it. And they asked her for some water. She took the water. She had a banana, and I brought her a cookie, which she wanted, the chocolate cookie.
WGN caught up with young Hannah in a Kankakee hospital this afternoon while she was resting and getting some fluids. Her parents shared their thoughts about finding their oldest daughter alive and the loss of her grandfather. The two, Mike Clemecki says, were very close. Hannah was his best friend.
The best way that he could have gone out, he probably would have thought, was with his best friend, Hannah. Doing what he loved the most, being on the river.
Meanwhile, people who know the Clemecki family well reflect on these recent days that have tested them all, even their faith.
Everybody's bound together in prayer and just been praying for them, and God had his hand on that little girl and he brought her out of the woods, and we couldn't be happier.
She's been in God's hands the whole time, and he has chosen which home to bring her here to, and this is the home he's bringing her back to, and he must have great plans for her.
Now, an autopsy on the body of David Clemecki is expected to be performed sometime tomorrow. Tonight, Hannah's resting at the home that used to be her grandfather's. Her parents are by her side. We're live in Villa Park. Julie Unruh, WGN News.
What an uplifting story. Thanks, Julie.
In the woods for 2 days.
He called and said, she's alive. I couldn't believe it.
How she survived, first on Fox. But there's heartache and joy. The girl was with her grandfather enjoying some time on the Kankakee River. He didn't make it. Kelly Craft tells us how it all happened.
Absolute relief, happiness. I mean, when they called on the phone saying that they actually saw her coming out of the woods, it was a pretty amazing. I mean, it was amazing.
It seemed too good to be true as a little girl, naked and holding raspberries, walked out of the woods.
And she looked at him like, where were you guys? What took you so long?
No one ever imagined this little girl could be 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki, who had been missing for 2 days.
I got on my walkie-talkie and said, fellas, she's here, she's alive. She's alive, So, just unbelievable. Excuse me, can't be more happier,
On Wednesday, Hannah and her 62-year-old grandfather, David Clemecki, went boating on a river near Moments. Hannah said Grandpa jumped in for a swim. His body was pulled from the river early this morning.
When they called this morning telling me my husband was dead, I just assumed that she was with him, and the next call I would get would be that they found her too. But when he called and said, she's alive, I couldn't believe it. It's just like, oh my God, you're kidding me.
Authorities think a river current swept Hannah away from this island, but she had floaties on her arms, and she says she grabbed a tree branch and pulled herself from the water.
I think it was a miracle. I prayed for one all night, and we got one this morning.
An answered prayer that's bittersweet with the loss of Hannah's grandpa, her river buddy, whose Hannah's parents are calling her savior.
If it's going to be a pleasant thing to give news, I would say that my dad spent his last minutes in the best way possible at the river with his best friend Hannah.
When Hannah walked out of the woods, she asked for a chocolate chip cookie. Instead, they gave her a banana and some water, then took her to the hospital. Other than some bug bites and scratches, she's doing just fine. For this family, it's a mixture of joy and sadness, remembering a grandfather but celebrating the survival of their daughter and grandfather's best friend. Live in the newsroom tonight, Kelly Craft, Fox News, Chicago.
All right, Kelly.
This is ABC 7 News at 10, Chicago's #1 news.
Hysterical joy is how the mother of a child missing and feared dead describes their reunion. Hannah Clemecki had been missing for 2 days before she walked up to one of the searchers who'd been looking for her.
I got lost in a little forest, and then I tried to find my way back.
Good evening. Kathy and Cheryl are off tonight. That girl and her grandfather had been boating on the Clemecki River near Moments when they disappeared. Searchers found the body of David Clemecki, and as ABC 7's Charles Thomas tells us, the family and searchers feared Hannah would not be found alive either.
As the Reverend Mike Clemecki held his 5-year-old daughter Hannah tonight, he remembered all the prayers that he and his wife Carol had spoken during the 2 days their little girl was missing.
When we despair, we gotta turn it over. We gotta turn it over to prayer and to hope.
All that I could do is, and that we could do, is cry out. I mean, not even so much prayer as like aches from her heart that got verbalized.
Hannah and her grandfather, 62-year-old David Clemecki, disappeared Wednesday after the two set out on the Clemecki River on a fishing boat. By Thursday morning, a full-fledged search and rescue operation was underway that continued until this morning when the dive team found the grandfather's body. Then 2.5 hours later, the little girl, holding a fistful of wild raspberries, walked out of the woods naked, literally into the arms of rescuers.
One of the gentlemen said that she had some berries in her hand, like she had been surviving on her own. A 5-year-old girl now, you know, it's just unbelievable.
Hannah told investigators she and her grandfather were swimming when they became separated.
I was stuck in a little forest. And when was night, and I tried to look for my grandma and grandpa's cottage again. It was very harder than I thought, because it's very hard to see where you're going.
Some of the dive team members joined the Clemecki family at a celebratory cookout tonight.
Huge emotional thing. We're still all on a high from it. It's just, like Rich said, you just can't explain it. You know, we always see the bad end of it. And this is just, we're seeing all the family here and the guys here, is just makes it all worthwhile what we do.
The Reverend Clemecki, who pastors a church in West Suburban Villa Park, and wife Carol lost a son at childbirth, and by this time last night had steeled themselves for the loss of another child. But the couple says they never stopped praying, and this morning there was an answer.
When the rubber hits the road in life and life gets incredibly tough, there must be something that is beyond you.
Investigators still are not entirely certain how David Clemecki drowned. Relatives say he was an experienced boater and good swimmer who never would have endangered his granddaughter. In Kankakee County, Charles Thomas, ABC 7 News.
The Clemecki family will talk to the folks on Good Morning America tomorrow. That broadcast begins at 7 o'clock.
Now a GMA Weekend exclusive, the incredible story of a little girl who managed to survive alone in the woods for 3 days. Rescuers feared the 5-year-old had drowned, but instead she surprised everyone when she emerged from the woods uninjured. Here's ABC's Eric Hong in Chicago.
Hannah Clemecki clutched her parents after 2 days alone in the woods. Before searchers could locate the 5-year-old, she found them.
I can't tell you how excited and, you know, enthused I was to see that. So I finally got on the air and I just screamed, you know, I said, boys, she's alive, you know, she's alive.
Hannah had been swimming with her grandfather in the Clemecki River Wednesday when the two were overpowered by the current. The body of Hannah's grandfather was later discovered downstream. He had apparently drowned, and Hannah's family feared she had suffered the same fate.
My wife and I were sitting on the bank of the Clemecki River looking at the forest and we're just praying. We're saying, Lord, supernaturally guide her in our direction somehow.
With her tiny hands, Hannah had managed to grab a branch and pull herself from the raging river. For 2 nights, she wandered the woods barefoot.
I tried to follow the river where it was going, and I got lost.
After walking about 2 miles, Hannah stumbled upon the camp searchers had set up. She had scratches from the dense brush and was cold, but otherwise fine. In one of her hands, she was clutching some berries.
I was going to save them for breakfast.
A survivor's instinct tested at a very young age. For Good Morning America, Eric Hong, ABC News.
And earlier, we spoke with Michael and Carol Clemecki along with their daughter, Hannah, in an exclusive interview. And since Hannah is just 5, we knew it would be hard to talk about her grandfather, so we just talked about what it was like to survive in the wilderness. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hannah, how are you feeling?
Good.
I see you scratching a little bit. It looks like maybe you have some bug bites.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you itchy?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what it was like to be out in the woods all that time, Hannah? How did you do that without getting scared?
I tried to follow the water, but I found a big house. And before I walked there, I crossed a bridge.
You went to a bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Did you eat anything while you were out there?
No, that is such a thing.
You must have been hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Was it kind of cold too?
Yeah.
Wow. Carol, you must be just so thrilled to have that little girl back in your arms.
Absolutely. So it's unbelievable.
Can you even believe that she was able to do this 2 nights, 3 days?
No, I was astonished. Hannah loves to dress up and be a princess, and for her to walk out of those woods was incredible. I mean, I know that God led her to where she needed to go.
Hannah, let me just ask you a couple more questions about what it was like out there. Did you have any shoes on?
No.
No? So did it hurt on your feet, or was it kind of hard to get around and walk around?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the big hurt for her right now is the bottoms of her feet. We have to kind of carry her everywhere, you know.
And is she doing, health-wise, she's going to be fine, Michael, Carol?
Yeah, when we were leaving the emergency room, the emergency doctor was shaking his head at how clean her blood work came back and how little attention she required after 2 nights in the woods. They were astonished. So she's got some bumps and bruises and some scratches, but she's great. She's a little itchy, but we'll take it.
Yeah, and she was protected, like, you know, she was just protected all through that forest, and she didn't run into any kind of wild animals or anything. So we're really blessed.
Michael, I know you're a pastor, and you must have really been praying through all of this.
Yeah, my main prayer the night before she came was that God would supernaturally guide her direction into the place that she needed to go, even though she was traversing like miles of forest, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. I had a sliver of hope that she was even alive, but we were just kind of praying towards that end anyway. And miracle of miracles, she found exactly the people who were going to help her out, and she found everybody, which is amazing. I mean, she was led exactly where she needed to go.
Well, Hannah, Michael, Carol, we're so glad to see your family back together.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Avenue. This is NBC 5 News Today at 6 a.m.
Thank you for finding me. I really appreciate that.
It's the story of a miracle on the Clemecki River. 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki, missing for 2 days after falling in the river with her grandfather, is found safe and sound. Good morning on this Saturday, June 16th. I'm Rob Elgis. Zoraida Zamblin's off this morning. Ginger Z's off this morning. It's you and me. Turning out to our top story this morning, a miracle on the Clemecki River. 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki, missing for 2 days after falling in the river with her grandfather, is found scratched but alive. The young Villa Park resident was located yesterday morning, just hours after her grandfather's body was pulled from the river. Hannah simply walked out of the dense woods holding a handful of raspberries. Hannah planned to give them to her grandmother for waffles.
Almost hopeless, you know, almost, I mean, it just looks so bad, and then out of the woods, here she comes.
Hannah was swimming with her grandfather when they were apparently swept away in a strong current. She managed to grab onto a tree branch and pulled herself out of the water. She survived for 2 days, all by herself in the wilderness.
I didn't know where I was, so I tried to find my way back home.
Hannah's grandfather, 62-year-old David Clemecki, did not survive. His family says he was a strong swimmer who knew that river well. They are waiting for an autopsy to see if a heart attack may have contributed to his death. Now to another major...
Lauren survived 2 days alone in the woods. There you see little Hannah live. Her mom and her dad will also join us live after the break. You're watching American Morning, the most news in the morning, right here on CNN. Clemecki died, but somehow little Hannah Clemecki survived 2 days alone in the woods. Incredible story. Hannah joins us now along with her parents, Carol and Mike Clemecki, from their home just outside of Chicago. Thanks for being with us this morning, guys. I want to begin with little Hannah. You're such a brave little girl, and you're so smart. Tell me what you did over those 2 days that you were alone, Hannah.
Well, I don't really know what I did in the forest.
Well, you picked up some berries, didn't you?
Yeah.
Were you scared?
Yes.
I bet you were, where you are certainly lucky to be alive. Mom or Dad, Mike, why don't we start with you? What has Hannah told you about exactly what happened over those past couple of days?
She told us that the forest was really scary, like a haunted house. That she heard a lot of bugs, and she had a hard time sleeping because it was tough to go to sleep because of the noise of the bugs. So, and she said she didn't really eat anything or drink anything. So I don't know how she did it. I couldn't have done that.
It's really incredible. Oh boy, there's a picture of her in the hospital just after she was found. Carol, tell me about those couple of days during the frantic search. What was going through your mind, and then tell us about how she was found.
Sure. Those days were, I guess, day and a half would be the longest days of my life. They were endless, and we felt helpless. We really didn't want to get in the way of an excellent rescue team, so we tried to kind of stay away from the command center, just come back here and wait to hear word. We didn't hear anything for the longest time, and so we just spent a lot of time crying and praying and hoping. And my other daughter, she would go down to the river, and she was calling for Hannah in case she was telling her to come home, it was time to eat. She's 3, so we spent a lot of time with them, just trying to help them understand what was happening. And like I said, every breath out was a prayer, every breath in was a prayer.
I know it must have been hard to keep hope alive, so to speak. Mike, tell me about how Hannah wandered toward searchers. She was carrying berries, and she didn't have any clothes on, right?
Yeah, she got out. She had her water wings on. Those water wings let her float to a different part of the river, and then she got out. She took off her suit because it was starting to chafe. And the only way I could say that she knew how to get to the rescuers was through our prayers, because we're praying to God that He would guide her to somebody and to safety. And if you look at the miles of forest that she could have gone to instead of going in the right direction, the odds are so much against her, and it had to be something that was a supernatural miracle.
And let's talk a little bit.
Happy.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. Hannah's a little tired this morning, because those water wings may have saved her, but also it may have been her grandfather's last act to save her life. Right? Talk about that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit, and Mike can talk too. I really believe in the bottom of my heart that Grandpa did something that allowed her to get out of that current that might have pulled her more downstream, might have pulled her into a whirlpool. He did something that we have no way of knowing, but I know in the bottom of my heart he saved her life. He saved her life because he told me many times he would give his life for my kids. He would not let anything happen to them.
Yeah.
Well, I know he knew the area very well, and perhaps he did save little Hannah. Regardless, we're so happy that all three of you are together again this morning. And Hannah,
thanks.
Thank you for being with us, along with Carol and Mike Clemecki, her parents. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cold and alone in the woods after going swimming with her grandfather in the Kankakee River in eastern Illinois.
The two were tossed into the river by the rough current. Tragically, Hannah's grandfather drowned. She survived on berries, and before searchers could find her, she found them. Hannah and her parents, Mike and Carol, join us live from outside her grandparents' home in Momence, Illinois. Mike, you first. Tell us, did you fear the worst?
How you doing, Geraldo? Yeah, we feared the worst, but we had a small fraction of hope. We were anticipating the worst, but hoping for the best.
Mike, tell me, why the pessimism? What factual aspects were there that made you feel so down?
They didn't give us much to hope for when we went to the Master Command Center. They were telling us that Hannah probably followed my father into the river, and both of them got swept away. And they didn't know about Hannah's flotation devices that they had, and so when they brought the dogs in to try to follow her trail, they couldn't follow it because she floated somewhere else. And so that was a big factor that was left out of the investigation.
Carol, tell us your feelings when you first saw your beloved daughter.
What I first felt when I heard?
Yep.
Unbelievable despair. I couldn't believe it.
But then when you saw
it was like a nightmare.
When you saw her alive, then what?
It was, I wish I could think of a word that was better than amazing. It was incredible to see her. I mean, she looked relatively unfazed. I couldn't, just calmly sitting and eating a banana.
And what did you say? What did she say?
I said, "Hi, sweetie," and I think I said, "Just thank you, Jesus," over and over. And then she said, "Hi, Mommy."
Hannah, those pink floaties, they really helped you out, didn't they, honey?
Yes.
And how did you find those berries? How did you know what to eat?
Well, I saw bushes and
Were you scared, honey?
a little bit I was.
Just a little? How come not a lot?
I don't know.
Do you want to say hi to any of your friends now that you're famous and on TV?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Say hi, Kelsey.
Who are you going to say hi to?
Who do you want to say hi to? Say hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey. I really miss you.
Look in the camera.
And Trinity?
Hi, Trinity. I really miss you so much all the way from Texas.
Okay. I give you a big kiss, Hannah, Mike, and Carol. Congratulations. She is adorable. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Geraldo.
Thanks, Geraldo.
Autopsy results show a Momence grandfather drowned in the Kankakee River and did not suffer a heart attack. David Clemecki's family believes that he may have saved his granddaughter's life by pushing her out of the strong current that was pulling him under. Last Wednesday, Clemecki took 5-year-old Hannah for a boat ride and a swim when he disappeared. On Friday, the girl was found alive in the woods. Clemecki's body turned up in the river the same day. His funeral is scheduled for Wednesday in Momence.
Live from Chicago's NBC5, this is NBC5 News at 10.
Happy Father's Day, Daddy.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you.
A priceless gift on this Father's Day. A Villa Park dad spends the day with the daughter who survived an accident on the Kankakee River, an accident that claimed his own father's life. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Anna DeVlantis. They call it a miracle. 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki and her grandfather were swimming in the river when the currents got too rough. Hannah's grandfather drowned right after he helped get her to safety. The 5-year-old survived 2 nights alone in the woods. Here's Amy Jacobson now with the incredible story. Amy.
Anna, it is a bittersweet Father's Day for Mike Clemecki. He lost his father, but believes his father's last act saved his 5-year-old daughter, Hannah. A big welcome home tonight for 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki. The little girl who just graduated from kindergarten is, by all accounts, a miracle. On Wednesday, she went boating on the Clemecki River with her grandfather. Dave Clemecki was pulled under by the current. Hannah was wearing water wings, but the family believes he saved her by pushing her away from the current.
That push probably helped her to get to the shore, to get to the branch, to pull herself out.
Once out, Hannah says she tried to find her grandpa's cottage. With no shoes or clothes, she walked through the heavily wooded area. She did not sleep or eat or drink for 2 nights.
I was scared of the dark because it was very spooky in the forest. There is many trees, so I didn't know which one was the cottage.
Tonight, Hannah still has scratches over most of her body. She is the oldest of 3 girls. Rachel is 3, Chloe is 2. Their father, a pastor, who says he never gave up hope. Tonight, as he holds his children, he remembers the man who gave him life and who saved his little Hannah. Dave Clemecki used to be a hard-nosed steel worker.
And then once the girls came into his life, he just softened right up and did amazing things, like retire early and started to have tea parties, which is pretty amazing. So he loved his granddaughters so much.
I know this day I would thank him and say thank you for the best gift that we ever got, and tell him Happy Father's Day from the bottom of our hearts.
I haven't gotten a present yet for Father's Day, but that's okay because she came out of the forest a couple days ago. That was my gift.
Now, Dave Clemecki was a Vietnam veteran and father of 2 sons. His visitation will happen on Tuesday in Moments between 3 and 8 p.m. and funeral services will be held at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Anna?
Such a bittersweet story. Thank you, Amy.
Hannah Clemecki survived after spending 2 nights alone in the woods. ABC 7's Ben Bradley is here with more on how she's doing. Ben?
Ron, parents say 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki is a willful girl. She spent the first few days after her rescue shell-shocked. But this week, Hannah's dad says his daughter is back to her old self, but naturally still has questions about why she survived and her grandfather did not. A Vietnam veteran, an avid fisherman, a doting grandfather. 62-year-old Dave Clemecki remembered for those reasons and many more today in Moments. The Clemecki family's grief eased just a bit by the knowledge that one person is here, alive, perhaps as a result of her grandfather's sacrifice.
We told her that Grandpa did something to keep her safe. We said that, Grandpa is a hero for pushing you into safety, and then she nodded her head. She understood that.
Dave Clemecki and his granddaughter Hannah were boating last week on the Clemecki River when they jumped in for a swim. Hannah told her parents that while the two were swimming, she suddenly felt Grandpa push her hard toward shore. But he went under. 2 days later, rescuers found Dave Clemecki's body and feared the worst for Hannah. Then she emerged from the woods, covered with bug bites and a few scratches. Those familiar with the area are amazed she survived relatively unscathed.
They said that was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and that they couldn't traverse a lot of this stuff because it was just too much for them to do as grown men. And they didn't know how. They were just amazed at how she could be able to pull it off, which just points back to the whole miracle situation of it.
Today, Hannah drew a picture for her grandpa's funeral. It shows the two of them on the river. Hannah's dad says his daughter still has questions about what happened, but seems to be returning to her old self.
Monday she started to fight with her sisters, so that's a good sign. Yesterday she started to fight with us, so Hannah's doing a lot better. She's getting back to her jovial self.
Hannah's parents plan to use occasions like Father's Day, her grandfather's birthday, and other opportunities to talk about his sacrifice. Dave Clemecki is said to have been an extremely strong swimmer and very experienced on the Clemecki River. Ron and Linda, it's proof of just how strong currents in some spots along the Clemecki can be.
All right, thanks very much, Ben.
His family believed he died saving his little granddaughter's life. NBC5's Lauren Jiggets has the story.
It was just a week ago, 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki was out enjoying the Clemecki River with her grandfather. But today, she said goodbye. At his funeral, 62-year-old David Clemecki was remembered as a married father of 2, a grandfather, a Vietnam vet, and a fisherman. But most important, he was a man that loved his family and was on the river where he combined his love of fishing and of family, a tradition he passed on to Hannah.
He was passing on almost like his legacy to Hannah, which I thought was just great.
Last week, while swimming with Hannah, a strong current overwhelmed them. Hannah survived, living 2 days in the woods by herself. Rescuers found her just hours after finding her grandfather's body. The family says what David Clemecki did along the Clemecki River was heroic. Hannah remembers her grandfather pushing her to safety before he was carried away by a strong current.
We told her that Grandpa did something to keep her safe. We said that, Grandpa is a hero for pushing you into safety.
The family told Hannah that her grandfather passed away on Saturday. They said she cried a lot, but seems to be doing better as the days go by. And they say she knows how much her grandfather loved her.
It's something that we're going to revisit, Father's Day, his birthday, as much as we can as we read books about dads, and as we see pictures about him, just reminding her exactly what he did.
Reporting in Moments, Lauren Jiggets, NBC5 News.
Our thanks to Lauren. In honor of David Clemecki, the family held a memorial barbecue on Saturday and a private luncheon today.
We're waiting for this ball game to get underway. We'll be back in a few minutes after a break.
Well, a 5-year-old Moments girl who overcame incredible odds took center stage at today's Cubs-Sox game. Now to one of the opening pitches to Sox pitcher Mark Burley. Clemecki went on a boating trip with her grandfather earlier this month on the Clemecki River. Her grandfather went for a swim at one point and drowned, but she survived and was 2 days alone in the woods before she was rescued. Good for her.
Today's Crosstown Classic will always hold special meaning for one little girl from the suburbs. She got to throw out the first pitch at today's Cubs-Sox game in honor of her late grandfather, the man who lost his life saving hers. Here's NBC5's Anthony Ponce with more.
Before Game 2 of the Crosstown Classic, 5-year-old Hannah Clemecki was all smiles.
I'm very glad to be here and very excited to go up throw the first pitch.
A high five from Dad, a good luck hug from Mom, and some last-minute work on her follow-through before the big moment. Today, the Sox honored the family a week after tragedy when Hannah lost her grandfather, 62-year-old David Clemecki.
This is like such a great testimony and a remembrance for him because he was such a huge White Sox fan.
The two were swimming in the Clemecki River when they both got caught in the current. The family credits David with saving Hannah before drowning.
So this is just us remembering him in a special way that probably would never have happened unless things happened the way that they did, tragically and also happily enough.
To see his granddaughter throw the first pitch on the home field of his favorite team.
We're going to take lots of pictures so then when she's older, she'll be like, I really did that. Wow, what a memory.
The family knows that the White Sox and Hannah had another fan watching the game live today, but he wasn't in the stands.
He's not here in body, but he's here in spirit. He's watching the festivities. He's having a great time where he is right now. I know it.
As for a fitting ending to an emotional week, the family says today was a perfect strike. At U.S. Cellular Field, Anthony Ponce, NBC5 News.
What a great memory for that family, wasn't it? Hannah was missing, as you may remember, for 2 days before rescue crews found her near the Clemecki River. Her parents say she's made a complete recovery from that. As for the game, though, much more on that coming up tonight.
Hannah Clemecki has come a long way since earlier this month. She was found alone in the woods after her grandfather drowned while boating.
Now she's being honored as a survivor. Today she got to throw the first pitch at the Cubs-Sox game. CBS 2's Suzanne Lemonnier has her story.
That's Ozzy. He's going to catch your throw, okay? You try to throw over his head, all right?
Hannah Clemecki's parents give her a little coaching before she heads to the pitcher's mound with her sisters. The pep talk did the trick.
It was a perfect ceremonial first pitch.
I feel a little nervous, but my mom and dad was standing by me.
The great throw was followed by a one-on-one encounter with Sox starting pitcher Mark Burley. It was just a way to actually have Hannah and her family out here to show her how much love there is in the city behind her, behind them during these times. Today is a big contrast for the little girl who disappeared with her grandfather on June 13th. Hannah had gone boating with Dave Clemecki on the Clemecki River. While swimming, Dave drowned. He would be found 2 days later by rescue workers. Hours after that, Hannah would walk up to workers at a rescue staging area.
She just bounced back so good. It's just, it's just God's grace. It's great.
While the scrapes and bug bites have healed on the little girl who picked raspberries to survive, the pain of losing Dave Clemecki isn't going away. Hannah's grandfather was a lifelong Sox fan. The family says they know he's here in spirit. He would be head to toe White Sox gear, and I know he'd be saying, "Go Sox." Dave Clemecki's Sox pride now lives on through his granddaughter.
Go White Sox!
Suzanne Lemignot, CBS 2 News.
5-year-old Hannah Clemecki's grandfather drowned while they were on a fishing trip on the Kankakee River. Rescuers from the Lake County Aquatics team found Hannah alive 2 days later. The New Hope Church in Villa Park, where Hannah's father is a pastor, had a special dinner for the rescuers. The workers did not come to the dinner empty-handed.
Hannah walked around for a couple days in the woods by herself. And we thought maybe this will help you so you don't have to walk around so much anymore. Right? Why don't you go ahead and uncover it, see what it is.
How about that? Well, the team wanted to give Hannah and her sisters a little something fun after such an ordeal, and they also made Hannah an honorary member of the Aquatics team. How do you like that?
Lost and alone for 40 hours. How did this girl find the courage to survive and walk out of the woods? Tonight, Hannah Clemecki and her family shared details of her ordeal for the first time with CBS 2's Vince Geraldo.
Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop.
Hannah Clemecki remains a spunky 5-year-old girl who likes to sing to her little sisters. But this ordinary girl lived through an extraordinary ordeal in a rugged corner of Illinois.
Lost. Me lost.
You got lost?
Against all odds, Hannah escaped from the rushing waters of the Kankakee River and survived in the thick surrounding woods for nearly 2 days, all alone.
What did you do on those days?
Calling out for my family.
Almost 2 months after the incident, Hannah can relate only in bits and pieces what happened. But what she can say speaks volumes of her natural ability to persevere. A child who knew finding shelter was key.
I was walking, find a place to stay with it when it's dark.
What began near moments as a fishing trip with her grandfather to a favorite family spot turned tragic as swift currents claimed David Clemecki's life and swept Hannah away to what search parties believed was her death.
Because I was afraid that I was never going to find my way back.
She doesn't remember very much.
Hannah's parents, Carol and Mike Clemecki, are people of faith. Mike is a minister in Villa Park. Both are convinced God watched over their daughter.
And it just points to the miracle of it that it wasn't her. I mean, she's not just a strong little girl, because she really isn't. I mean, it was really God protecting her.
Hannah can't swim, but the Clemeckis say water wings her grandfather placed on the girl helped Hannah float safely away as currents pulled him under.
Like when you're in the water and the water is way too fast. And then, so I grabbed it onto a branch.
You grabbed onto a branch? And then how did you get out of the water?
Pulled out.
You pulled yourself out? Did you ever pray while you were out there? You did? What did you say?
Help me find my mom and dad again.
40 hours after they disappeared, search crews found Dave Clemecki's body. Then, just 30 minutes later, Hannah, who somehow knew following the river might lead to houses, walked right into their arms.
Do you know why everybody wants to meet you and talk to you? Do you know why I'm here?
Because I'm special.
What an honor to meet her. The Clemeckis say Hannah is more independent since her ordeal, and they've heard from people around the globe who found inspiration in the story of the little girl who walked out of the woods. Vince Geraldo, CBS 2 News.
Vince, thanks for that. She is special indeed.